Today, we journey through the early years of Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose voice became a beacon for justice and equality. Each year of his life tells a part of a story that reshaped our world. 1929. In the heart of Atlanta, Georgia, a leader is born. Martin Luther King Jr. enters the world on January 15th, named Michael King Jr. after his father, a pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church. This year marks the beginning of a life that will inspire millions. 1930. Young Martin experiences life in a deeply segregated America. His early years are shaped by the realities of racial division in the South, laying the foundation for his future role in the fight for civil rights. 1931, a year of sorrow for young Martin as his grandmother, Jenny Williams, passes away. This loss deeply affects him and begins to shape his understanding of life and death, contributing to his emotional depth and empathy. 1932. At the age of 3, Martin starts to show signs of curiosity and intelligence. He grows up in a nurturing environment, surrounded by a loving family who instills in him the values of faith, determination, and the importance of education. 1933. As Martin turns 4, he witnesses the harsh realities of segregation in Atlanta. These early encounters with injustice sow the seeds of his determination to fight for equality and human dignity. 1934. At 5 years old, a significant change occurs in young Martin's life. His father, inspired by the German Protestant Reformation leader, changes both their names to Martin Luther. This year marks not just a name change, but the beginning of Martin Luther King Jr.'s journey towards becoming a leader in his own right. 1935. Martin begins his formal education. He enrolls in the segregated public schools of Atlanta, starting at the Yonge Street Elementary School. His early education plays a crucial role in shaping his intellectual pursuits and his understanding of the racial dynamics in America. 1936. As a 7-year-old, Martin becomes more aware of the social injustices around him. This awareness is further deepened by his experiences in the racially divided South. He continues his education, growing both in knowledge and in his understanding of the world. 1937, a pivotal year for 8-year-old Martin. He makes the decision to be baptized, demonstrating his deepening faith. This spiritual journey is a significant part of his life, influencing his later decisions and moral compass. 1938. At 9, Martin experiences a defining moment. He and a white playmate are told they can no longer play together due to their racial differences. This painful experience introduces him to the harsh realities of segregation, deeply impacting his young mind and planting the seeds for his future in civil rights activism. 1939. As the world edges closer to war, 10-year-old Martin grows in a community steeped in the values of faith and education. He joins his church's choir, where music becomes a source of comfort and expression for him, a solace he would carry throughout his life. 1940. Martin, now 11, begins to show a keen interest in the power of words and speeches. He participates in a debate contest at Booker T. Washington High School, displaying his early oratory skills. This experience ignites a passion for public speaking and advocacy. 1941. At the age of 12, Martin faces a tragic moment that profoundly affects him. He mistakenly believes he has caused his grandmother's death by not being home, leading to a suicide attempt. This event reflects the deep emotional sensitivity that would characterize much of his life and work. 1942. 13-year-old Martin continues his education amidst the challenges of World War II and the deepening crisis of racial segregation in America. He begins working summer jobs, including at a tobacco farm, where he experiences the harsh realities of labor and racial inequality. 1943. During his early teenage years, Martin further develops his understanding of racial injustice. He experiences his first major incident of racial discrimination on a bus ride home to Atlanta, where he is ordered to stand for white passengers. This incident deeply angers and solidifies his resolve against racial segregation. 1944, a pivotal year for 15-year-old Martin Luther King Jr. as he enters Morehouse College, skipping both 9th and 12th grades. This early admission to college marks the beginning of an extraordinary academic journey, setting the stage for his future influences. 1945. While the world celebrates the end of World War II, Martin, at 16, continues his education at Morehouse. He begins to explore theological studies, a path that would eventually lead him to follow in his father's footsteps as a minister. 1946. At 17, Martin Luther King Jr. is deeply engaged in his studies and the burgeoning civil rights movement. This year, the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Morgan v. Virginia, which declared segregated seating on interstate buses unconstitutional, likely catches his attention and fuels his passion for justice. 1947. 18-year-old Martin makes a significant decision to enter the ministry. He delivers his first sermon at Ebenezer Baptist Church, marking the formal start of his journey as a pastor. His commitment commitment to spiritual leadership and social change begins to merge. 1948, Martin graduates from Morehouse College with a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology at the age of 19. The same year, he enrolls at Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, where he starts to hone his theological and philosophical beliefs, laying the groundwork for his future activism. 1949, 20-year-old Martin Luther King Jr. continues his studies at Crozer Theological Seminary. His intellectual and spiritual growth is evident as he delves deeper into the complexities of theology, ethics, and the social issues of his time. This year, he also starts dating Coretta Scott, an aspiring singer and musician he met in Boston. 1950, Martin, now 21, begins to emerge as a leader among his peers at Crozer. He's elected student body president and embraces the role, showcasing his natural leadership abilities. His views on social and racial justice continue to evolve, influenced by his academic pursuits and the unfolding civil rights movement. 1951. At the age of 22, Martin Luther King Jr. completes his studies at Crozer Theological Seminary, graduating as valedictorian. He then enrolls for doctoral studies in systematic theology at Boston University, furthering his academic and philosophical foundations in the realms of social justice and theology. 1952, a year of deepening love and commitment for 23-year-old Martin as he continues his relationship with Coretta Scott. Their correspondence and conversations reveal a shared passion for social justice, music, and intellectual pursuits. This year strengthens the bond that would later lead to their marriage. 1953, a milestone year for Martin Luther King Jr. At 24, he marries Coretta Scott on June 18th. The wedding, performed by his father in Marion, Alabama, marks the union of two individuals deeply committed to the cause of social change. This year also sees Martin making significant progress in his doctoral studies, laying the groundwork for his future role as a civil rights leader. 1954. At 25, Martin Luther King Jr. takes a pivotal step in his journey. He becomes the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. This same year, the landmark Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision declares racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional, a ruling that fuels the civil rights movement and resonates deeply with King. 1955, a defining year for King and the civil rights movement. At 26, he leads the Montgomery bus boycott, sparked by Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat. King's leadership in this year-long boycott brings him to national prominence and marks a turning point in the fight for civil rights. 1956, as the Montgomery bus boycott concludes victoriously, 27-year-old Martin Luther King Jr. emerges as a major national figure. His home is bombed during the boycott, but he remains steadfast, advocating non-violence. This year, the U.S. Supreme Court also affirms the lower court's decision to end segregated busing in Montgomery. 1957, King, now 28, helps found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, aiming to harness the power of black churches in the fight for civil rights. He becomes the organization's first president, establishing himself as a leading voice in the national movement for racial equality. 1958, at 29, King's influence continues to grow. He publishes his first book, Stride Toward Freedom, chronicling the Montgomery bus boycott. This year also brings a frightening moment as King survives an assassination attempt during a book signing in Harlem, New York. Despite the attack, he remains committed to the principles of nonviolence. 1959. At the age of 30, Martin Luther King Jr. takes a vital trip to India, deepening his understanding of Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent protest strategies. This journey profoundly influences his approach to civil rights activism. Meanwhile, he continues his pastoral work and civil rights leadership, spreading a message of peace and equality. 1960, a year of significant changes. King, now 31, moves back to Atlanta to become co-pastor with his father at the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church. This year, he also joins the sit-in movement against segregated lunch counters in Atlanta, resulting in his arrest. This incident gains nationwide attention, demonstrating the growing impact of nonviolent protest. 1961. At 32, King faces challenging times as the freedom rides begin. These bus trips through the American South by interracial groups test segregation laws. King supports the riders who face brutal violence, bringing more attention to the civil rights movement. His commitment to nonviolence becomes a beacon of hope amidst the turmoil. 1962. This year, 33-year-old King meets with President John F. Kennedy, advocating for civil rights. His influence is growing, and his voice becomes impossible to ignore on the national stage. The struggle for civil rights is becoming a central moral issue in American life, with King at its forefront. 1963, a landmark year. At 34, Martin Luther King Jr. leads the Birmingham Campaign, a series of protests against segregation in Birmingham, Alabama. His subsequent arrest results in the famous Letter from Birmingham Jail. Later that year, he delivers his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech during the March on Washington. This speech becomes a defining moment in the civil rights movement and in American history. 1964, a monumental year for 35-year-old Martin Luther King Jr. as he receives the Nobel Peace Prize, recognizing his tireless efforts for civil rights and nonviolent resistance. This year, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is also passed, a significant victory in the fight for racial equality that King played a crucial role in achieving. 1965, King, now 36, leads the Selma to Montgomery marches in Alabama, highlighting the struggle for voting rights. The brutal response of local authorities captures the nation's attention and helps lead to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. King's commitment to nonviolent protest continues to galvanize the 1966. At the age of 37, Martin Luther King Jr. takes his activism to the North, focusing on housing segregation in Chicago. This year is marked by both successes and challenges as he faces opposition and violence, but also helps bring national attention to urban segregation and poverty. 1967, a year of expanding horizons for King, who at 38 increasingly speaks out against the Vietnam War, linking the struggle for civil rights with broader issues of global peace and justice. His stance is controversial, but underscores his commitment to nonviolence and justice on a global scale. 1968. Tragically, on April 4th, Martin Luther King Jr.'s life is cut short by an assassin's bullet in Memphis, Tennessee, where he had gone to support striking sanitation workers. At just 39 years old, King leaves behind a legacy of hope, resilience, and a dream of a world where equality and justice are attainable for all. As we reflect on the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., we are reminded of the power of vision, courage, and unwavering commitment to justice. His dream continues to inspire generations, urging us to keep striving for a world where freedom and equality are not just ideals, but realities for all. Martin Luther King Jr.'s journey from Atlanta to the world stage shows us that one person's voice can indeed change the course of history. 1969 to 1973. In the years following Martin Luther King Jr.'s death, his legacy of nonviolent protest and social justice continues to resonate. His birthday is celebrated in various states, and schools and streets are named in his honor. The civil rights movement he helped lead presses forward, advocating for equality and justice. 1974 to 1978. King's influence extends globally. His teachings and methods inspire movements worldwide, from anti-apartheid efforts in South Africa to peace movements in Europe. His messages of hope and equality continue to echo in the hearts of many. 1979 to 1983. The push to honor Martin Luther King Jr. with a national holiday gains momentum. In 1983, after years of debate and campaigning, President Ronald Reagan signs a bill creating Martin Luther King Jr. Day, to be observed every third Monday of January, starting in 1986. 1984 to 1988. King's philosophy influences global leaders and activists, contributing to the fall of oppressive regimes and the rise of social justice movements. His teachings are studied in schools and universities, instilling values of nonviolence and equality in new generations. As we move into the 21st century, Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision remains a guiding light. His speeches and writings continue to inspire those fighting against injustice and inequality. His dream lives on, not just as a memory, but as a living, breathing call to action for all who seek a fairer, more just world. The story of Martin Luther King Jr. is not just a chapter in history, it's a continuous journey towards realizing a dream where equality, justice, and freedom are not just ideals, but tangible realities for everyone. His life, his words, and his actions remind us that while the path to justice may be long and fraught with challenges, it's a path worth walking. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy is a testament to the enduring power of love, peace, and the unyielding pursuit of justice. Stay informed and join us for more updates.